to accept your emotion. It's okay that I'm feeling this anxiety right now because it's part of the human experience and I know that I'm safe. That's your acceptance. It's asking yourself, why am I grateful for this anxiety? Well, the anxiety is trying to keep me safe. Why am I grateful for this anger? Because it's pointing me in a direction where I may need to voice my needs or a boundary. You can always accept an emotion by showing gratitude towards it. When you feel an emotion, it releases energy in your body, and it doesn't go anywhere if you don't allow it to go anywhere. And that's why people hold on to anxiety, anger for 20 odd years.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Nourished Inside Out. I am here with Courtney today. She's an emotional and intelligence mindset coach. Thank you so much for joining us.
I am so happy to be here. Obviously, we organized this quite a while ago, so I've been excited to jump on with you. I'm excited.
Yes, I'm super excited as well. Do you mind telling us a little bit about your journey and how you became an emotional intelligence mindset coach?
Of course. So I basically went through my own journey about 4 or 5 years ago, and I experienced an anxiety disorder, hit rock bottom, basically. And I just wasn't doing very well. The anxiety started to control my life. I'd already experienced anxiety, but it started getting to the point where it was really controlling my life. And I hit rock bottom, and it got to the point where I was like, fuck this, I can't carry on this way. I cannot carry on continuing these patterns. And I was cancelling things with friends. I couldn't really go out. I couldn't get through a day of work without an anxiety attack. So it got to the point where I was like, no, something needs to give, something needs to change. At that point, when I hit rock bottom, I made it my mission. I remember I was in tears with my boyfriend and I was like, I'm done. Something's got to give. This is the line in the sand. And then since that day, I went on this whole journey of figuring out and understanding how the mind works and how the human body works and how we deal with emotions and what anxiety is and all of the things. And I started to view myself and the world in a completely different way. And I was like, holy fuck. Women need to know about this. Women need to know that they have the power to learn about their emotions, to heal their anxiety, and to shift how their mind works completely. So from then on, I started the Grow and Glow Co. And here we are today. Grow and Glow Co. is the name of my business. Was born in 2021. And then for the past 3-4 years, I've just been building on that and creating a bigger and bigger impact. And now we're here.
I think that's so beautiful. It's crazy because I remember I went through a similar phase like that as well, where I remember I was dating this guy, and every time we made plans to go out, I never wanted to go out. I would really have an anxiety attack or a panic attack because I would spend all week mentally preparing myself for the plans that we had. But then if they slightly changed last minute, that's it. I'm done. I'm not going.
And what happens is, as soon as you start having anxiety attacks, you get anxious about about having an anxiety attack. You're waiting for the anxiety attack to come. So it's just this circle.
Yeah, that's so true. Can you explain what emotional regulation is and why it's so important as a skill for personal growth, especially for those who do suffer with anxiety?
Absolutely. Emotional regulation, before I explain what it is in the simplest terms possible, I want to explain why it's the most important thing any listener listening to this will ever learn. It underpins everything, as your mindset does, but emotional regulation really does underpin everything. Your relationships, your relationship with money, so how your finances, your business if you're a business owner, or your career, and and your relationship with yourself. It underpins absolutely everything. And that's because if you are able to respond to the world instead of react to it, you become the most powerful woman in the world, honestly. Because most people spend their lives in a reactive state. So something on the external happens to them, or internal, they have a thought, something happens and they act without control. They act out of emotion based off something they've experienced in the past and something that's been triggered, a pain point from the past. You will react blindly, without control, out of emotion. Emotional regulation allows you to be aware of the emotion, allows you to acknowledge the emotion, accept the emotion, and then let it go. So that's the most simple way to explain emotional regulation. It's the skill set and the ability to be aware of how you're feeling, to acknowledge what emotion that is without making it mean anything. Because what a lot of people like to do is go, okay, let's use anxiety. I'm feeling anxiety, and that means the world's going to end, and that means I'm a shit person, and that means I'll never do this. So it's to be able to feel an emotion such as anxiety, anger, jealousy, any emotion, and not make it mean anything about you or the world or what you're capable of. And then after you've acknowledged it, this is the hard part that a lot of people are aware, right? They've got that awareness piece, and they might be able to acknowledge how they're feeling. But to accept it, this is where it starts to get a little bit tricky, and where you get to really refine that skill and master that skill. To accept your emotion, it's okay that I'm feeling this anxiety right now because it's part of the human experience, and I know that I'm safe. That's your acceptance. It's asking yourself, why am I grateful for this anxiety? Well, the anxiety is trying to keep me safe. Why am I grateful for this anger? Because it's pointing me in a direction where I may need to voice my needs or a boundary. You can always accept an emotion by showing gratitude towards it. A layer deeper is the letting go. This, again, takes some refinement, takes some practice. Is asking yourself, what does your body need? Or what does this emotion need to be released from your body? Because emotions are energy in motion, which means that when you feel an emotion, it releases energy in your body, and it doesn't go anywhere if you don't allow it to go anywhere. And that's why people hold on to anxiety, anger for 20 odd years. Do you know what I mean? So you get to get into the practice of asking, okay, I'm feeling anxiety, and that's okay. But what does it need from me right now? What is it telling me? How can I let this go in a healthy way? And that's the key. It's letting it go in a healthy way, because right now you might be experiencing anxiety and snapping at people. You might be experiencing anger and making snidey comments to your partner. Whereas if you're feeling that anger and you want to release it in a healthy way, it might be you go for a run, you do some breath work, you breathe it out, you go and sit in nature for 5 minutes. And this takes practice, but that, in the shortest way possible, is what emotional regulation is and why it's so important.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. Something that you said was learning to accept our emotions. Why is it so hard for us to accept our emotions and accept where we're at with them?
Because we've not been taught, because it's the one thing that we should absolutely be taught in schools from the moment we fucking make sense of the world. From 0 to 7, we are we're like sponges. Our mind is like installing programs. If you look at your mind like a computer, from 0 to 7, that's where your whole belief system is in place. If you're not taught how to feel your emotions safely, then you're not going to feel safe to feel your emotions. So we have this narrative that anger or jealousy or sadness or whatever emotion you want to think of is bad, and that we can express them. So when we're sad, when we're little, it's don't cry. Big girls don't cry. Or when you witness anger as a child. So my example and my evidence of feeling anger was always violence or arguments or even abuse for me. I went through quite a lot of trauma as a child. When I got older into my teens, I didn't feel safe to feel anger because I was never around an environment that I could, or I wasn't taught how to. So what happens is people feel undesirable emotions, not bad emotions, but undesirable emotions, and they panic, or they don't know what to do with that, and they think it's bad, and they attach a meaning to the emotion. Oh my God, I'm jealous, and that means I'm a shit person. Or I'm lonely, and that means I'm alone. You're not alone. You're just experiencing loneliness. There's a massive difference there. People don't know what to do with what they're feeling, and therefore, because they don't know, it feels unsafe in their body. And then that's where this kind of disconnect from the human experience happens.
Wow. Yeah, that's so true. It's not talked about enough, especially since a kid. That's like that example you said. Big girls don't cry. You put it under the rug. It'll be fine until it eventually blows up.
Yeah. Those subtle narratives, we don't think they play such a big part. But if you're constantly told, for instance, if you're angry and you want to express your anger somehow as a kid, but you're told, no, be nice. You've got to be nice, be quiet. That running narrative is something that stays with you. So you do not feel safe to express.
Yeah, that's so true. Many people struggle with emotional triggers. What are some common triggers that you see in women, especially those that are healing from past wounds?
Oh my goodness, it could be anything. I'd say relationships is definitely up there with the most triggering thing you'll ever lean into, even in a healing journey, because you are so closely connected to a human being that they are going to show you the worst parts of you. And that's okay. But seeing the worst parts of you gives you an opportunity to lean into those triggers. I always say that triggers are a message. They're not a bad thing. They're uncomfortable. But as long as you know how to emotionally regulate, you can look at that and go, okay, that's interesting. It's about kind of zooming out and looking at yourself from a curious lens rather than being in it. You know what I mean? So you experience a trigger, say in relationships, your partner mentions that he's going out with the boys, and that creates this fucking pit in your stomach. You feel like instantly on edge. You feel like the whole world's about to end and he's going to go out and he's going to cheat on you. You are operating there. You're not operating from what's in front of you. Him saying, I'm going out with the boys. That's not scary. That's not dangerous. That's not a threat. What's a threat is the fact that your dad left when you was bloody 5. That's what your body is reacting to in that moment. So triggers could be everything, but what you need to remember about triggers is that you're not reacting to the thing in the present, you're reacting from the thing in the past.
It's kind of a warning. Hey, this is something that is triggering you. This is your opportunity to overcome it in a healthy way or go about it in a healthier way. I really like how you said their messages.
Yeah, exactly. That removes the fear from it or the negative meaning because people feel triggered and it can be quite intense. When you're triggered, it can be quite an intense experience and but your body feels unsafe in that moment. But once you know how to create calm in your body, you can look at it from a curious standpoint and go, okay, what from the past is coming up currently in the present? Because that's where you get to look at it and go, I'm no longer fucking allowing the past to dictate how I show up in the present. I'm no longer allowing the past to dictate how happy I am or how calm I am in the present, because that's what happens when you trigger it. It's nothing to do with your man. It's nothing to do with your career. It's nothing to do with what's in front of you. It's always something coming up from the past.
When it comes to regulating your nervous system, how important is that for emotional regulation?
Huge. When we talk about emotional regulation, it's a lot to do with how you move for emotions, how you feel your emotions. Nervous system regulation is your body's ability to create calm and feel safe. So you've got your, I'm sure a lot of people have heard of fight or flight. It's very well known. And that is basically a danger response that your body's doing it what it should be doing. You don't want to be regulated all of the time. You don't want your nervous system to be regulated all the time because that means your body wouldn't be working as it should. You are going to be in fight or flight because that means your body's trying to keep you safe, and that's a beautiful thing, right? But in terms of nervous system regulation, what you want to do is be able to notice when your body feels in threat. When your fight or flight is when you feel angry, frustrated, panicked, worried, anxious, in fear. That is your fight or flight, okay? And in terms of emotional regulation, if you're able to notice those emotions popping up, those certain emotions, you can go, okay, I understand that I'm in fight or flight right now. Before I do anything else, I'm going to tap into my glimmer list, and that's going to be able to bring me back down to rest and digest. So rest and digest is when you feel super connected, you feel grounded, you're able to connect with other human beings because you feel safe. You're calm, you're present, all of these things in your body. So you want to be getting really clear on what either of those look like for you, because then you'll be able to notice it. Then your glimmer list is the opposite of a trigger. A glimmer is the opposite of a trigger. So it's something that makes you feel calm. It could be petting a dog. It could be sitting in nature. It could be going for a swim. Everyone's got different glimmers, but some of your key glimmers could be things like breathwork, meditation, journaling, because they make you feel calm. They're a release, right? You've also got the freeze response, which is like a secondary threat response. And your freeze is basically when the best way to describe it is, have you ever seen an animal when there's a threat and they don't fight, they don't run away, they either play dead or they literally just stand in their tracks and wait for the threat to leave? That's basically it, but in human form and current day form, it looks like disassociation, it looks like hopelessness, kind of the depression kind of stage. You feel like you've checked out. That's freeze. You're almost emotionless. So you don't feel it. It's like you don't feel anything. You checked out. That's a nervous system response. Again, what's your glimmers? You follow that. So in terms of the link between nervous system and emotional regulation, when you're aware of your emotions and when you're aware of what state you're in, you also can be aware of whether you're activated and when it's time to introduce the glimmerless so you can bring yourself back to calm in the body.
That's a great way to explain it. Thank you. Can you tell us what the difference is between reacting and responding? If someone is used to always reacting, how can they start making a shift to learn how to respond to their emotions?
Being responsive. Something goes wrong at work, your boyfriend goes out with the boys, someone says something really mean to you, you have a shit day at work, whatever it might be, right? Between that happening and how you choose to respond, there is a space, right? However, when you're reactive, you don't notice that space. The space is very small. You don't even know it's there. So something happens externally to you because, like we've said, you're triggered from something in the past and you just react. When you respond, you notice the space. Something happens and you pause and you go, okay, how do I actually want to respond here? This is how I've responded in the past, but I choose not to respond that way anymore. I'm going to respond like this. Instead of snapping or saying a shitty remark, instead of, I don't know, kicking off in work or allowing this one thing to fuck up my whole day, I'm going to choose to respond this way. I'm going to choose these words. I'm going to go and do this thing. And then when you start to do that, that is where growth lies. That's how you grow, by choosing how you want to respond to the world. And that's why that is so important to me, because that is the number one thing. Realizing that you get to choose how to respond to the world will change your life. Now, me saying it and someone who's completely new to it is easier said than done, right? But that's where you get to introduce the tools that are going to help you slow down, the tools that are going to help you slow your mind down, become aware of that space. And you do that by being more present and practicing mindfulness.
That's so important. Being present and working on the mindfulness while you're in the present moment. I think a lot of times when you said that example of, oh, he's going out with the boys, and immediately the anxiety kicks in, the panic attack in your stomach, like you were saying. I've totally felt that. And it's because I was already projecting what was going on in my head, what the situations would be, instead of really being in that present moment. That's so valuable.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And when you practice mindfulness and when you're in the present moment more, you realize that you feel that way because of a story that you're attaching to that situation based off the shit that you've gone on in the past, but because of your exes or because of the way your dad treated your mum or whatever it might be, whatever story and root cause it is. If you're practicing mindfulness and being present and getting the hang of noticing what's going on and connecting the dots in that moment, you will go, okay, I'm not going to kick off because he's going out, or I'm not going to allow this anxiety to consume it. I'm going to do this. And that's the power of choosing rather than reacting.
Yeah. What techniques would you encourage people to start doing if they do immediately start to get anxiety or mini panic attacks in those situations?
There's 2 layers to healing your anxiety, okay? If you are completely new to this and you experience anxiety, I used to experience anxiety a lot over my appearance. It was fuck all to do with my appearance and in relationships, and it was fuck all to do with the relationships. It was due to all the past shit that I'd shoved in a box and ignored for 24 years, right? I'm going to put that to the side a second, because if you're new to this and you're just getting into the hang of it, you want to go for a process, okay? And it's a framework that I've used for the past 3 years and it never fucking fails. The first thing you want to do is get super fucking clear on who you are and start to step into the identity of who you want to be. Because I bet you any money, if you are experiencing anxiety at the level that I was, you are identifying with an anxious person. You attach to that identity so much that there's no room for change. But I always say this is something that I will shout to the fucking cows come home. That's a very English saying. You are not an anxious person. There is no such thing. You are a human being who experiences anxiety, who has a skill set gap, who gets to learn, but you're not an anxious person. That's not who you are. And as long as you attach that identity, you'll find it very, very difficult to create any change, right? So that's the first thing. Then you get to ask, all right, if I'm not an anxious person, then who the fuck am I? Get clear on your values, get clear on what you love, what you don't love, what your standards are in relationships, get clear on what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, all of these things, like create who you want to be, what shoes you want to step into, get clear on that. Then you want to start to learn about nervous system regulation and emotional regulation. So get used to understanding what anxiety is. Okay, get used to, in the moments that you feel anxiety, breathing through it, telling yourself you're safe, telling yourself that you're a human being who experiences anxiety and that's okay. Because what I used to do is, if I felt anxiety, I'd be like, oh my God, I feel anxious. If you're telling yourself over and over and over again that you're anxious, that anxiety is just going to fucking boom. Also, if you're constantly telling yourself when you're anxious in the thick of it, I need to get rid of this anxiety, you're going to feel it more. I want you to look at anxiety like a person, like a best friend who just wants to protect you. And if you're constantly trying to shove her away, she's coming back at you 10 times over. As soon as you turn to your anxiety and go, thank you for trying to keep me safe. I understand why you're here, but I kind of don't need you right now. What do you need from me to release from the body? And when you start to ask yourself that, you realize that you can go out for a walk in nature. You can breathe, because as soon as you use your breath, you're anchored into the present moment. And anxiety, it's impossible for anxiety to be in the present moment. Because anxiety, if we look at what anxiety is, it's a human threat response for future danger. So as soon as you ground yourself in the present properly, anxiety cannot exist, right? So get used to doing that. And then the last part of this framework, in the hardest part you'll ever do, is discovering the root causes and healing those root causes. So going back and uncovering what your deepest fears are, uncovering why you feel so unsafe in your body, uncovering why you feel so unsafe to feel emotion, going back and looking at your past experiences, not necessarily trauma all the time, but if you're experiencing that level of anxiety like I did, then probably you would have experienced some trauma. And it's going back in a safe space, in a safe environment, and really picking out all the shit, facing the shit, and being okay with feeling the emotion that you locked away from all the shit. Because as soon as you feel you're able to feel that in a safe environment, in a safe way, it's not in your body anymore. And you won't feel the anxiety at that level. I can honestly say, very, very confidently, I will never have another panic or anxiety attack in my life, ever. It was a daily occurrence 4 years ago, because I've got the skill and I know how my body works.
Something that you said that I really liked was just really facing it to confront it. Like, what do you want? What are you doing here? Something that I used to say when I would start to get anxiety and I was working on overcoming it, I would always tell myself, we don't know her. Who is she?
If you're saying, who is she? I don't know you. You're denying a part of yourself. If it worked for you, that's amazing. And I love that. But my narrative is, instead of like, who is she? We don't know her, about my anxiety, it's, thank you for being here. I love you. My whole narrative is we make friends with anxiety, because as soon as you make friends with her, she doesn't stick around anymore as much as she used to. It's like a contradictory thing. As soon as you stop trying to get rid of her, she goes. She don't feel like she needs to protect you as much. You're letting her flow through and making... The way I look at it is, if and when she pots through now, which is very, very rarely now, like hardly ever, but when she does, I'm like, okay, it's just a mate coming round for a brew. But if I just ask her, how you doing, hon? Yeah, cool. I'm just gonna go and like sit in nature with you and see what you want. And then she fucks off. She fucks off after she's had a brew.
I love, you know, just came for a quick cup of coffee. I like that perspective of, instead of running away or pushing it away, welcome it and just fully embrace it, but don't stay there, you know?
Exactly that. Yeah, exactly that. And you know you won't stay there, because as soon as you can't, in a way that's like, woo, I want to be anxious forever, it's embracing it in a way that's cool. Like, this is how I'm going to help you leave. It's okay that I feel this way, but this is how I'm going to help you leave.
That's incredible. I feel like many women feel guilty for feeling too emotional or too sensitive. How can they see it as a strength?
I only work with women, and I get so many women saying, like, I feel like I'm too emotional. Like, I feel a lot of emotion and very deeply. And I pause them there whenever they say it. I said, what you've just said there is a beautiful thing. You are a woman who feels deeply, and that is an incredible thing. The fact that you feel, and the fact that you feel your emotions, is a sign that you are alive, you're living, you're experiencing this incredible world. Why would you shame yourself about that? And that's the switch you get to make. And it comes from the stories that we're told, doesn't it? Like, as women, it's, oh, we're too much, we're too loud, we're too bossy, we're too emotional. So that there is, if you do feel and that you've got this belief that you are too much of anything, you get to go back and rewrite that story and put a middle finger up to what fucking society is telling you that you should and shouldn't be. There's that. So that's a layer that you can go and lean into. Why is it that you're too much? Where's that story come from? Because that's all it is, a story, and you get to change it, right? And then the other part of that is completely switching it to how fucking amazing that I'm such like a deeply emotional person who embraces what it means to be alive. Like, if you are feeling, and this is what I mean about, even when you're feeling the less desirable emotions, like you're sad or whatever it might be, like, that is a beautiful thing, because without that, you wouldn't be here. It's a sign that you're a living, breathing human, and that is an incredible thing. It's the human experience, and I think that's the most beautiful thing ever. So there's no such thing as too emotional. It's that you're a woman who feels deeply, and that is fucking beautiful.
That shouldn't be something looked down as a weakness at all, because it takes a lot of work and a lot of strength to feel your emotions and to show them.
At the start of this podcast, we said, didn't we? We're not taught how to express, feel, show our emotions safely. If you fucking master that, and you're able to express your emotion, not react from your emotions, but feel them, express them, feel safe to feel them in front of other people, that is something to be celebrated, and that shows strength, right?
Yeah, that's beautiful. How does self-compassion play in that journey?
Huge. I want you to imagine that all your internal world, right, is made up of different parts of you. I'm closing my eyes because I like to visualize it. All different parts of you. You've got the part of you that is, let's stick with the reacting to the boyfriend thing, because we're in that now, right? So you've got this part of you that's reacting to your boyfriend going out, and you might be really snappy with him because of that. You might react, you might blow up at the littlest things because of that, right? So you've got this part of you. That part of you is shit scared. She is living in fear, that part of you, because she fears that she's going to get hurt. She fears that she's going to be abandoned. And that part of you is the little part of you who made a meaning of her dad going to work every day and he couldn't play with her. So every day when he left for work, you stood at the door, watched him leave, and you was like, "For every day he leaves me." See, it doesn't have to be this big traumatic thing. It just could be that he was going to work, right? But you've made it a meaning of that and gone, the people that I love leave me. So in that moment, that part of you is fucking shit scared of being left, comes out, and it comes out in a way that's anxiety kicking off, blah, 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 right? So you've got that part of you. She's little, she's scared, she's fucking shit in her pants. Then you've got this other part of you who is judging the fuck out of her for doing it. And she's like, oh, you're such a dick. Like, that's so embarrassing. Why are you doing that? Oh, we're such pricks. What are you doing that for? This is your voice in your head who's saying, why am I acting like this? It's so fucking annoying. Why do I act like this? I'm such a dick for acting like this. All I do is push people away with this behavior, right? So when you're doing that and this judgmental part of you is going in at the part of you that feels scared, that part of you is going to feel so scared that the behavior is fucking 10 times because she doesn't feel safe. You're not making that part of you feel safe. So it's internal conflict. You've got this part of you that, yeah, she's judging the other part because she wants to be calm in the relationship. She wants to be happy. But this other part of you who's scared just wants to feel seen, safe, heard, and understood. So if you stop judging and you go, right, okay, I'm going to actually listen to all of these parts of me. Part that's scared, how do you feel? Well, I feel scared because of X, Y, Z, because dad walked out and all I want is to be loved and be happy, right? That's all I want. But I'm scared. I act this way because I'm shit scared. And then this is your higher self. This is your conscious, present self doing the curiosity and the digging. She turns to the part of you that's judging. What do you want from me? What can I do for you? And the part of you that's judging goes, well, I just want the same. I just want to be loved and I just want to be happy. So these two parts of you that are fucking currently going in at each other are absolutely just wanting the same thing. They're just currently against each other. As soon as you start showing your self-compassion, instead of trying to hate yourself into change, and you turn towards each part of you and say, okay, I'm here. I'm going to be the person who you needed back then. I'm going to be the person who shows you compassion. You will find that part of you that's in fear no longer controls you in the present. Because in that moment where you're about to kick off with your partner, you understand that part of you is in fear. Instead of judging yourself, you go, okay, I understand what's going on here. I understand that this part of me is just really scared, and that's okay. I've got you. We're still a fucking bad bitch. I'm here keeping you safe. And then instead of judging yourself, you're showing yourself compassion, and you can move forward in a way where you're not in internal conflict. You're working together.
That's beautifully well said. When it comes to setting boundaries, how could someone set boundaries with people who trigger their emotional reactions, especially when it comes to like toxic relationships?
Okay, interesting. Love this question. First thing I'm going to say here, and it's quite trigger some people. Nobody else can make you feel anything. Nobody else can, and people are dicks, yes. People are toxic, yes, but nobody has the power to make you feel anything. Again, we have a choice how we respond. We have a choice, or we have the ability to realize that we can go deeper and look at our triggers. So for instance, if someone says something about you, the only reason that's going to trigger you slightly is because a part of you somewhere thinks it's true, or a part of you somewhere has got an emotional attachment to what they're saying, right? So when you come to that realization, you're like, well, fuck that. I'm not allowing anybody else to have emotional power over me. And you get to do the work, the healing work that we've mentioned. Now, if you are around toxic people, how do you set boundaries? If you've done the identity work that we talked about sooner, you would have set your standards and you would have had your values, and you would have worked on kind of having, this identity of what you want in your life and what you don't. And it's not a click of a finger, it takes practice. You won't settle for having toxic people in your life. When you do that work, the framework that we talked about earlier, and you become present and you start to do the work, because it's very, very hard when you're in a state of anxiety to even notice toxic people because you're in fear. But when you zoom out, you're able to see who's good for you and who's not, and make the decisions based off what you fucking deserve at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
How to set boundaries. And I understand, because I'm going to be honest, I'm in a situation right now where I've decided to go no contact with my dad, right? We've not ever really had like the most amazing relationship. But I found that I was giving him kind of chance after chance. And there was a part of me that was almost like still holding on to hope. And when I got back to the UK, I was like, no, fuck this. I've got evidence of the kind of love that I want in my life from the people around me. That's not it, right? But it took me time to get to this decision. I'm not saying that you can cut out everyone. You might have a toxic parent that, or if it's a toxic friend, I'm sorry, like chop, 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 goodbye. Do you know what I mean? Why would you put yourself around that when you do the work of really getting to know yourself and setting your standards and continuing to do this work? You'll realize and get evidence of the kind of people that do love you no matter what and that do respect you. You'll grow your confidence in cutting friends out. When it comes to family members, I understand not everybody is going to just fuck family members off, and I get that, okay? So in terms of setting boundaries, get clear on what behavior is crossing your lines. If someone is continuously like disrespecting you or making you feel a certain way, emotional dumping, maybe you've got a family member who is constantly fucking ringing just to moan and complain, and you're not, at the end of the day, you're not an emotional dustbin, and you want to articulate that you're not down for that anymore. You want to wait till both parties are in a neutral kind of vibe. So don't be screaming off and kicking and shouting. You want to make sure that that none of the people that you're setting boundaries with or yourself is in fight or flight. Because when two people or even one person is heightened, it's like talking to a brick fucking wall. Yeah. It's impossible. They don't hear you because their body is in a response that all they feel is threat. So they're not going to listen to you. They're not able to connect. The part of the brain that is actually responsible for reasoning, for connection, which is needed when you're setting boundaries, switches off when you're in fight or flight. So you have to make sure you're in a neutral standpoint when you're setting boundaries. Then you want to be clear. You want to be to the point, and you don't want to over-explain yourself. So none of this, I don't want you saying this to me anymore because I'm really sorry and I just don't want this. And like, no, none of that. All you need to do is, this is making me feel X, Y, Z. Refrain from blame language. So you want to be saying, this is how I feel. I don't appreciate this because I value your relationship. I want us to be okay. I want us to grow together as a couple if it's your partner, or I want us to have a good relationship if it's your family. You want to offer a solution. You want to be assertive, but you also want to show compassion. Like, nobody's perfect at the end of the day. And then I have a 3-strike rule. I call it the 3A rule. So you assert that boundary 3 times. But you're not a fucking parrot. If they're still continuously disrespecting your boundary after 3, then you're the person allowing it to happen. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you get to choose whether you distance yourself from that person, X, Y, Z. But this is what I mean. It got to the point with my dad where I was like, am I a fucking parrot or what? No. So that's when I made that decision. But before that, it was, I'll distance myself from him. Before that, it's, I'll set the boundary. And everybody's different. And you will act from where you're at in life and where you're at on your journey. But that is the 3A rule. And then on the 3rd, if you can't, and it doesn't mean that their behavior has to completely change because we're all human, but if you can see they're making the effort, then that's amazing. You know when someone is just continuously taking the piss, really.
Something that you said in the beginning that I really liked was you allow those triggers to affect you because you believe them. That really spoke to me because that's true. If we don't believe it, we just push it away and move on.
Push it away. Yeah. It's like saying, I know this is really random, right? But I've got a white top on right now. Okay. If someone come over to me and was like, that top's red, I'd be like, well, no, it isn't. It wouldn't affect, I wouldn't be like, no, it isn't. Like, no, and kick off because it's just, I'm not emotionally attached to it. It's false. I don't believe that's true. But if someone come over to you and said something that on some level you know to be true, that's when you're triggered. That's when you react because you're emotionally attached to what they're saying, and you feel the need to defend yourself. You feel the need to protect yourself.
Wow.
Because part of you thinks it's true.
Wow. Yeah, that's so true. Thank you. How can emotional regulation impact a woman's confidence, relationships, and overall well-being?
When you are not in a reactive state anymore, And when you understand that you have the power to choose, you see that you're in control. You see that you are the powerful woman, because for so long in your life, you was responding from absolute pain. You was responding from all the shit that you've been through. And when you start to really be in touch with your body, because that's what this is, shit absolutely changed for you. You feel more connected to yourself, and that's where the confidence comes from. You realize that nobody else has control over the way you act or the way that you behave or the way that you think. Confidence comes with that. With well-being, it's honestly, with nervous system regulation, especially with well-being, when you're more calm in your body, when you feel more safe in your body, and when you spend more time in rest and digest, you're less susceptible to things like diseases, things like depression, all of these things, because you feel safe in your body and your nervous system is regulated most of the time.
That's great. I always think confidence is quiet, insecurity is loud. If someone listening feels like they always react impulsively, what's one small habit they can start today to start moving towards healthier responses?
If you're listening and you do feel quite reactive and you just want one thing to concentrate on, I would say practice mindfulness and practice being in the present, because that way, that's going to create a domino effect of you being able to notice and become aware. You can't change what you don't know. So if you are slowing it right down and practicing mindfulness, and practicing mindfulness can look like you going for a walk with no phone and just noticing the colors, noticing the sounds, noticing the smells, all of these things. It could be meditation. It could be journaling. Oh my God, this is another thing. Journaling. If you're quite reactive, you want to be practicing mindfulness. And then when you're starting to notice these things, get home and journal every night. Today was challenging. I reacted to my boss being a dick in work, and I started crying and I started feeling anxious. I felt it in, where did you feel it? In your chest, whatever. And then I think this might come from, what about that? You want to be asking yourself, what about that reminds you of something else? What about that could be connected to something else, right? And then you want to offer a new kind of perspective. Okay, maybe my boss was just having a bad day. His bad day doesn't mean anything about me. It doesn't mean that I'm shit at my job or that XYZ. You want to get used to how your thoughts are operating, because that's what's creating the reaction and the emotion, right? So that your first piece is becoming aware. So mindfulness, slowing it right down, practicing being present in the moment, whether that's through mindful walking, meditation, whatever it might be, just slowing it right down. And I'd say journaling, mindfulness are the two things I'd start with.
Those are all beautiful tips. Thank you.
To see a woman go from emotional chaos to calm is cycles of self-doubt to fucking like insane self-trust is something like I wake up every day literally and say to myself, oh my God, I'm going to change more lives today, because I love what I do. If you are looking to kind of master this skill and go deeper with this work, then we have got a membership for those who want to maintain or step into this world. It's got women from all around the world practicing emotional regulation, mastering their mindset, and then me and you one-on-one going through that framework that I went through before is Pain to Power. And that's a 4-month experience, and it takes you from being reactive, from reacting from your pain, to your power, which is choosing your responses, understanding your emotions, and all of that. But also, if you just want to learn and you're at the very beginning of your journey, just come over on Instagram. I'm always chatting shit. I'm always giving you everything that you need. So starting off at my content, seeing if we vibe, and then go from there.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for everything today. Can you tell us, before we wrap things up, where can people support you and where can they find you?
Absolutely. So if you go over to thegrowglow.co, so thegrowglow.co over on Instagram and on TikTok, it's the same. And then if you just want to binge some content, I've not done a podcast in a long time just because other things have been happening, but the Proudly Imperfect podcast as well. There's a few episodes on there about emotional intelligence. So you can just key that in and binge away.
That's incredible. I'll have all of that linked down in the show notes below so people can stay in touch with you. Thank you for joining us today, Courtney. It's been a pleasure.
You are so welcome. Thank you.